to do a fermata over a whole rest, you have to first change the whole rest to a default whole rest, as opposed to a real whole rest.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. It doesn't make, you have to go in the plugins and do that. It's like, and every patch, they never fix it. There's probably like a legitimate reason to need both, but I haven't needed that.
It's software bloat. It's just like people patching software and then more people patching software on top of that. And then it's just like, now we're just, anyways, I don't know if this is actually going into the actual thing or if I should like start the actual podcast proper. So I will. Hello. And again, welcome to Bit Def. I'm Santiago Ramones. Around me clockwise is
I'm Megan Prather.
Chris Prather.
Kenneth Woods.
And yeah, I'm glad to have you here. You all composed, wrote, partook in the creation of No Justice, No Peace. So I guess to start with, what is No Justice, No Peace?
Yeah, so No Justice, No Peace is an opera that engages with the effects of police brutality in America, and specifically through a fictional family that lives in Oklahoma.
Sweet. Why opera?
So opera is just a great art form for allowing the audience to see characters specifically expressing emotions and communicating that in a really dramatic and effective way, and for presenting that kind of story. And then combining that with music, it's really effective, and I think allows the audience to connect deeper with the specific characters through that.
I was also like at the like ground floor in a way, in that like whenever it was a 10-minute thing, that was like the round of the oh gosh, now I'm blanking on the name. Who hosts the Opera on Tap? There it is. Okay. We all realized it together. I was on that round of short operas with your guys's as well. And so it was cool to see it transform into the full thing. So I guess why? I mean, like, we know this is an important topic, but why do this? Anyone?
Well, I mean, I feel like Chris should answer, because he did start it as a 10-minute opera. So, you know, he can go off on why he did it and then why he wanted to make it longer.
We came along down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess just a little bit how it started. Of course, you mentioned the 10-minute opera festival. And then from there, I had the idea I wanted to expand it, and of course I always wanted to do a 90-minute version of it, or at least a one-act full version of the story from the beginning was always the idea. So the 10-minute way was a way to kind of get some ideas down and a little draft of what the story could be. And then always knowing that I wanted to bring people in to expand it. And that ended up being, of course, Megan and Ray to do that. Now, what was the question?
Why?
Why?
Well, I mean, we started in 2020, so it was kind of like, I mean, we all kind of know what was going on with the pandemic, and also, you know, the Floyd stuff started happening at that time too. And I think that definitely gave us a push to kind of just get something like this out there going. And yeah, I mean, it's always relevant. It's been relevant for like a long time. So I don't know if we can cuss or anything, but almost did.
You can say whatever you want here.
But yeah, it was needed for a long time, especially somewhere here in Oklahoma, because we have a lot of injustices and things going on here that kind of just gets overlooked. So yeah, let's go ahead. Chris brought us on.
Yeah.
Prior to, I come from the journalism world, like I mentioned before this, and you see it every single day, all the news stories in Oklahoma City specifically. I mean, you don't even have to look nationwide for just the horrors of what's happening. I mean, at the hands of the police. We saw it with Benny Edwards and 2021, Stavian Rodriguez. And the names just keep lining up, even in our state. So a relevant topic.
And there's also an article, I think it's the Lancet. They released a study that showed Oklahoma has the highest rate of deaths by officers per capita. But another thing with why I think is we want to, I guess the whole goal with this is we want to build empathy for the victims of these things. And you can kind of see that with the way we took the media being portrayed throughout the opera, is that they tend, it kind of pits people against each other, us and them, when we fail to see the actual human pull to it. So I think that's another thing we want to do, is we want to show the humanity of the situations that are lost.
Yeah. I mean, another part that like No Justice, No Peace does is that you do see the conflict even on the police officer side. So I guess tell me a bit about, I guess, deciding to include that, or was it always like a part of that?
I think that it's a good way when you include kind of the human emotions that on both sides, to not shut people down completely in the conversation and discussion. I don't know, I guess, how to... When you allow everyone's kind of side and situation to be explored, then maybe people who might not be willing to listen to you at all or listen to your argument, they might be more receptive because they see like, oh, hey, you're going to explore an array of sides of this, I guess, instead of just what they might perceive as just one side. I don't know if that...
Yeah, I mean, we definitely wanted to like not just be so one-sided. You know, a lot of people may feel that it is, but I mean, we do believe that there are, you know, some cops who like feel like they got it in them to do the right things when it comes to right situations and things like that. And we didn't want to be so what's the word I'm looking for? Predictable with our opera. And like, I mean, you see No Justice, No Peace. And I think we had like a few comments and people just kind of like thinking it was just going to be one-sided and like we're just going to hate cops and things like that. But we didn't want it to be that way. And we weren't easy on the cops at all, I feel like, in the whole thing anyway. But, you know, we kind of showed some empathy on their end too, but still let it be known that, you know, it's still hard out here, still tough.
I remember that. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, no.
I was just saying, I remember that being a really tricky, as we were writing, a really tricky line to walk of making, we don't want to feel like we're not doing justice for the experience of victims of police brutality. But at the same time, we didn't want to overly just demonize the police. So that was like really tricky to balance so we don't go too far in one way, which of course that's what you guys were mentioning. But I remember that being really tricky in the writer's room with every single line we did with the dialogue and stuff, how we approached Lisa Price's character too.
I think also when these stories are in the news, with the conversation, the proverbial, the good cop, you know, what about the good cops? That's always the thing that supporters of police are going to bring up and say. So we kind of also wanted to make sure we explored like that argument of, well, what about the good cops out there? Lisa Price, I mean, everything she does and says up until the incident in the opera, it seems like, wow, hey, she actually wants to make a difference on the force. She would be what we would consider maybe a good cop. But at the end of the day, she's entrenched in a system that is filled with fear of people and things that just you can't. So even though we think she's going to be the good cop, she could be, it is never going to happen in the system that we have of policing.
Yeah, because you always ask yourself, like, you know, they say there are good cops, but then we're like, where are they at in these situations, you know? So I want to show, like, yeah, you know, she's a good cop, but when it came down to the heat of the moment, she still kind of chose a side.
Mm-hmm. You guys decided to be on Bit Depth, which is a particularly deep podcast. And so that it's kind of on you. So I'm going to acknowledge the elephant in the room that is two of the people that worked on this opera are white. What gives you the right? Ray?
No, I mean, I remember after one of our performances, I got asked this question, you know what I'm saying? You know, how they feel to, you know, me being black, writing with two white artists, white people who, you know, it ain't necessarily about their people or whatever, which I do want to say, you know, this definitely is a Black issue, but it's about all people too at the same time. But for that, in general, it's just like everybody goes through tragedy. You know, everybody goes through death. Everybody has family. Everybody can kind of understand that. And, you know, Chris and Megan never ever came off as if they knew what Black people go through and they knew like our situations and things like that. You know what I'm saying? They literally just see an issue and want to take care of it or handle or try to, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, what do you say to people who can do something and want to? And I know, Chris had a bunch of concerns about this, you know, taking up space, you know, that maybe a Black composer could do or this and that. But I don't know. I commend them for doing it and us wanting to do it. And man, we never argued, you know. I love Black people when I fight for Black people. And there was never a moment when we were sitting here writing where, you know, I felt like that was being disrespected or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really like built off of each other's ideas and, you know, it was good.
Yeah. All right. Now you guys.
I think that, there's a lot of experiences we're never going to understand, at all. And I think when I can't write from a perspective, I can write from the things I do know and understand, which is, so much of the story, like there's aspects of the important family love and loving your family and caring about your community and things like that. So I think even if, there's certain parts of things, I might not have contributed well to a lot of some of the conversations, but I think you can write from what you know. And parts where you're just like, oh no, I don't know where to go from here. You go to those basics of, okay, well, I can imagine what it's like to just lose someone in my family. I can imagine what it's like to, just love someone so much, a mother loving their son, things like that. From what I've seen in my family, how my mom loves us, how I think we kind of pulled all elements of like our moms into this for that character and like just different things we do know, you know. I don't know. That was kind of rambling.
Yeah. As Ray was saying, that was something I was really stressed out about the entire process. It really stressed me out. But one thing I think that we all connect on is just our basic emotions. And what I'm about to say, I'm not at all saying I understand the experience a lot of people go through experiencing this. But I think what we can connect on is some of the emotions that happen. I grew up and was bullied a lot in 7th grade for being small and different than people. So I can kind of understand the feeling of being othered. And of course, on a completely different level. And that's something I grew out of and I'm no longer dealing with. And that's something, of course, they can't. So I think connecting on the emotions to some extent can at least allow you to try to understand it when you're writing and creating. And then, of course, bringing in people that do have that experience to help really fully capture it is what we did. And of course, including some interviews we did to get different experiences, doing the workshop where we had like a talk back and got feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we definitely, because I mean, if I was looking on the outside in and the whole production and everything was like white, then you'd be like, you know, what the hell? But we did our best to really like include everybody, you know, from the musicians, obviously to our actors and community and everything. You know, I think we did and talked to. I mean, maybe we could have did more in some areas, but I think we did what we could to like include everybody.
Mm. Tell me a bit about those interviews that you did, and like, it's great that you are that you did expand beyond yourself and just drew on the experience of other people rather than just like, well, this is kind of my understanding. So like, who did you reach out to and tell me about what that was like?
Sure. So I interviewed Jordan Andrews, Devon Carrington, and Clint Williams. Clint is a friend of mine, composer from OCU. And then Jordan actually, of course, played the role of Harold Benson, and then Devon played saxophone in the pit. And then I also interviewed James Ham and Johnny Partita, who are 2 police officers. And that was just, we got in a room, discussed, and I just asked questions about their experience, how they feel about the issue, just to kind of understand it from their perspective.
Was everyone in on this conversation at that point?
No, these interviews kind of happened before we came on.
Yeah, so these were before the initial 10-minute version that we did. We did these interviews, and then I recorded them and I shared that with them, and we had access to that as we were working through
we did
full version.
Meet with some more people after. Sorry me to cut you off. Yeah, we did some more kind of talks after our workshop with other people too.
Yeah, we met with Dr. Thompson.
Dr. Thompson, yeah, who came and seen it. Had conversations with other people too. So,
Tell me a bit about that workshop process, because I'm sure that was kind of a different thing in that you'd already done a part of it and showed that. So, yeah, what is the workshop process like?
Oh, it's so much. It's like I think so. The most exciting thing about it, it's like the first time getting to hear the music and see it not through MIDI playback on a computer, which is terrible. So there's that excitement of it. And then I just remember that first workshop we did, what was that, 2021? Yeah, that summer. It was super exciting because all of us were also hearing the music for the first time. It was a lot of fun. And then there's a lot of like small changes all throughout. Anything from, this vocal line's not working. I can't understand this word because the composer was dumb and he wrote a syllable above the staff that you can't understand. So then like dropping it and moving stuff and all that stuff's like really quick changes on the fly. And the singers are like super flexible with and about doing. So that's like some of the changes. I don't know. I wasn't actually in it. What was it like? What did you guys do with, because I wasn't in there for the dialogue. We had 2 different setups. So Allie, who was our music director, she was rehearsing music with the singers. And then while we were rehearsing music with them, the other cast members were with Shay, who was our director, working on like some acting and line stuff. But I wasn't in there for that. What did you guys?
That experience was really cool too, because then everybody was kind of getting more into their characters, how to say things. And it also helped us realize that, we kind of needed to dig deeper into who our characters are. And so even after we did our performance, that was one of our huge things that we did was like, come up with like, how did each of our characters grow up and what they did and how they got to where they are today so that our actors can get more into their roles and things like that. So I think that part of it helped. And I was in there to be able to be like, you kind of have this emotion more and saying it, because those roles weren't that easy to play, but we did get some really good performers who like killed their roles for sure.
Lorenzo, Kayla, Alexandria.
Yeah.
Jacob. Elena.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah.
Best people to work with. It was a good opportunity to rework dialogue too, making it more natural for them, kind of how they would, how they would say it. It was great. Just everyone provided so much, and it didn't feel like anyone was too shy to like hold back stuff too, and kind of, or tell us like why they're doing things a certain way, and then giving us like, oh, hey, hadn't considered it that way. So it was a really cool collaborative process.
One of the biggest changes that I remember was there was an addition of an entire new song from the workshop version to the version that you saw and that we did in 2022. Mm-hmm. And so one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got during that was, one, it was kind of a mix of things. So it was that Chloe felt really aloof and not really personable because, of course, from that version, she doesn't really have a duet or aria until right before the end of the show, like an hour into it.
Real quick, who is Chloe?
Oh, yeah. The mom. We were not introducing any of these characters. Like, everyone knows who they are. Should
we do like a quick like plot rundown or something?
Well, finish your thought. We'll get there.
Yeah, sure. So Chloe is, she's the mother. And it felt like she was aloof and people weren't really seeing the connection and caring for the connection between her and her son and, of course, the husband, Harold. So that was one of the additions we had was, maybe we need to add another song. And then we eventually honed in on like the idea of what that song needed to be, which was a piece of advice that's kind of lighthearted and funny coming from a mother to a son in a situation. And then that song kind of came out of that. And one of the experience that we all experienced was like maybe going shopping for clothes with your mom and
get the shoes bigger so it'll last long.
so create some like nice comic relief in the plot right before a really big dramatic moment happens. Also kind of delaying what you're expecting to happen too, and then creating a nice moment to build her character more and see more into who she is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The workshop definitely helped us broaden everything. Like our dialogue and stuff was a lot thinner than what we ended up with, just getting feedback. And I will say a lot of people, like, I think maybe we had like a couple maybe negative comments, but not really, like we more of added things versus like taking things away. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Let's do this. Let's do a little bit of the plot breakdown so that people can understand a bit more of the context before I ask even more about it.
Oh.
Writers.
Okay. So,
keepers of the plot.
It follows a family. Harold Benson, he is the father. His son Anthony Benson. They're still grieving and kind of processing and going through the loss of Chloe, who is the matriarch of their family. It's mom, wife, and then you kind of he's about to graduate, go to college. It's like just a really happy time, and then you follow them along those series of events that happen. Then on the other end, there's Officer Price, and she is celebrating her. She's grieving the loss of her father and kind of going over her time on the force and stuff and contemplating if she's the officer she wants to be and everything. So there's kind of that internal, if she's living up to her father's, I guess, expectations and everything like that. So that's kind of, is there anything else kind of?
The other officer.
And the other officer too. He's her partner.
What's his name again? I lost his name.
Officer Evans.
Yeah, Officer Evans, right. Yeah, and he kind of plays more of the like, back the blue, kind of heavy type. And, she's the one who kind of plays more of the role of wanting to do really good. And then we have a therapist that, that they kind of go and see. Mm-hmm. Kind of the median between both parties, kind of.
Yeah, Harold's going to therapy to get he's working through his wife, trauma with that. And then Officer Price is ends up going to therapy as well after the incident occurs where,
It's hard not to say, it's hard to talk about too much without giving like
sure
away.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good enough thing to allow people to check it out. So I guess going from the point of the starting point of here's a 10-minute opera, we're kind of, it is kind of a different medium in itself. Like, I think working in song versus working in long form, you have to put a lot more meaning into the smaller amount that you have to work with. And so how did you work on the process of expanding this kind of complete story feeling in itself of the 10-minute opera out to the full 90 minutes?
Yeah, so I think what was good about the songs from the 10-minute one is those could easily fit as pieces of part of a larger story without it feeling like weird in any place. So those were really easy to kind of move where we went. So then we came up with a bunch of different like versions of what the plot layout could look like. And eventually that came to how we were going to weave Chloe into this. And the idea of her being kind of like a ghostly figure or like them thinking about her eventually cropped up somewhere and became an idea. And we slowly come up with different versions of what the plot could look like. When are we going to have the big moment with the officers interacting and the super sad moment? Where is that going to happen in this? And it's weird seeing how like an idea finally, I remember like one of the ideas that I wanted to do the whole time that didn't make sense until it finally did was at the very end tying the Star Spangled Banner into the final piece. And the original idea was, well, maybe at the end Harold just, there was the idea of the I'm sorry guys, there's going to be some of the stuff that comes out. The idea of having Harold meet the officer that kills his son. I'm still trying to spoil that. Didn't actually come out until many iterations later. So it was like, well, how is that going to happen? Originally it was like, oh, what if he sang the Star Spangled Banner? He's angry at the very end just by himself as like an aria. But then the idea of like tying it in, well, maybe he bumps into her. And maybe there's like little motifs musically from that come into it. Maybe little bits and fragments of the lyrics that are like manipulated and changed, like rounds bursting in air, other things like that. That was completely different from the original way the idea was. So I thought it's interesting seeing how like idea slowly like comes to fruition throughout until you find, oh, this is the way it needs to happen. Now again, I don't think I answered the question. I think I'm just
but like that is part of the process, the expansion of ideas into something bigger. And then I guess for you being brought in to help to expand that, but also I guess seeing what was there and then imbuing more, like putting yourselves and your creativity into expanding that.
Man, yeah, I don't know. Because I mean, we started writing it in 2020, so man, there's a lot that kind of just like went away, and like the memory of like everything we really was just coming up with, and it was so much too. But I think from what he already had, and us kind of just coming up with the plot, and you know how is this going to start? You know, with I guess we can kind of talk. We've already performed it, you know what I'm saying? So I guess we can kind of talk about it.
It's on YouTube.
At least for the people. Yeah, it's on YouTube. And, you know, it's for the people who have seen it, maybe want to hear more deeper meaning behind everything. But yeah. Yeah, I never thought I'd ever do something like this. So it was kind of cool to kind of just put my thoughts from what I've seen happening in the past years into this. And you know, it was really cool focusing on the family and digging into that and kind of thinking about my own family and just my own people and, you know, how they would interact with each other and how they would interact with the police. And yeah.
And sorry, one other quick thing I just remembered is as we came up with the structure, we like also plotted out the parts that we would have certain songs and kind of what the songs needed to communicate specifically. And then from there, we wrote down, oh, here's like the tone or like the idea, the nugget of what the song's supposed to be about. Which like, for example, the song we added being about building the relationship between Chloe and Anthony. So that was another thing that helped us focus in and then start brainstorming specifically on each song.
For the 10-minute, Chris worked with actually Olivia Wells she helped with the libretto at that point, and they just laid the groundwork so perfectly that it was so easy to go in and kind of just do like, you kind of have your major plot point, your major thoughts, and then you can do paths like around to just kind of connect everything and make you feel for the characters and really like, yeah, what's average family, you know, and expanding upon that. And so I don't know. I just want to give a shout out to Olivia too, that she put such that she did such a great job. Oh my goodness, on all that. The 10-minute version libretto was just incredible.
Yes, it's also a lot of work to just put on an opera. Like it's so much stuff, so many moving parts, so many moving pieces. So tell me a bit of like yes, you've expanded it, but then like having it performed, having it seen, having it recorded, and all of that.
Everything that, I felt like there was constantly everything that could go wrong was going wrong. We were just like putting out fires, like so close, and it turned out perfectly. Oh my goodness.
Writing's the easy part.
Yeah. We're like, oh my goodness, we're shutting ourselves in a room and not letting each other out for months, you know, to get it done. And then we're like, yes, we have this product. And then there's a whole nother mountain you have to climb of finding a venue to perform it at. And then, getting people interested in it and finding a way to convey it to everyone, and working with musicians and working with actors. And it was a really great, an opera on tap. Oh my gosh. Danielle Harrington and Rory Behrens, were such lifesavers and keeping us calm and like really showing us kind of what directions to go and kind of how to do all this stuff that I don't think we've ever really done before, like venue finding and like just fundraising.
And to kind of set that up as, not to interrupt, but just to set up as you continue. After we wrote it, we had no one to help us actually produce it and put it on. Of course, our background's not in theater. Mm-hmm. So that's when we reached out to Danielle and Opera on Tap, knowing that they've done this before with the 10-Minute Opera Festival we talked about. And that's kind of how we kind of got connected with them.
Yeah. And then they, writing grants, looking for people to give us some money, because how much did it cost to do it?
We did it for about $13,000 after it was done. And like half of that, actually like 60% to be exact, was generated through ticket sales, which went to paying everyone and doing that, which was really, really great and also really, really scary the week before. And then, of course, people buy tickets, once they're there, usually. We didn't get like a ton in advance. So it was super scary wondering, are we going to sell enough tickets for everything to go good? And then we have to be like the parents where something really serious is happening. We can't let the kids know. We got to be, everything's totally fine.
It's great. Nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect.
So that was like super scary and like huge relief when that happened. I mean, there's 2 other stories that were pretty crazy. Should we share those? Sure. With Lorenzo and with the venue, or should we not?
Oh.
Well, now you've teased people.
Now it might be me not to.
So
we were originally going to hold it at a venue, and it just was not going to work out anymore. We learned that the space was not going to have air conditioning in it. A lot of expensive instruments, a lot of singers, a lot of hot lights, just things that we were like, oh my goodness, this can't be. It's going to be June, it's going to be 90 degrees. So it was like a month before or something like that. We were made aware, and we had to reach out to all these different venues that wanted to charge thousands of dollars for, and then the Yale Theater ended up working with us, and they were fantastic. My goodness, it's a beautiful theater too. It was the perfect place for it. And someone else tell the other story, because I don't want to.
Yeah, sure. So before the workshop in 2021, we had a tenant who wasn't able to do it anymore, and we found out the week before the actual workshop happened. So I called up Lorenzo. I was like, who I've been friends with for a few years, and met him through actually Gus, who played percussion in the show, through like a church camp thing. So for years ago, so that maybe not very important to know. But
we're musicians, and like we have to know all these people to get, especially as composers, like having to know, like, oh man, I need a freaking whoever plays this thing. So yes, I understand.
So I called him and said, hey, Lorenzo, I need to say yes to the thing I'm about to ask. Can you come sing tenor in the workshop and totally save our butts? We're really, really screwed right now. And then he said, yeah, just send me the music. I sent him that, and then he learned it in like 2 days. And then he stayed at my place the night of the workshop, because he was living in either Lawton or he was living in Norman. No, I think he was living in Lawton at the time. And I heard him at night, like singing through like the walls. He was like practicing his part. Mm-hmm. So he's like so amazing, so nice, saved us, and so like
it sounds so good too. Even then,
he turned out to be really perfect. So
he was
the part. He was amazing.
The perfect character, perfect person to work with. So great.
Everyone loved Lorenzo.
He was just incredible. He was the character. And his voice is just, oh my gosh. It's just, all those problems ended up being like the perfect thing to happen. Which I don't know, whatever. But it just turned out so wonderfully.
Yeah, we definitely had a lot of people to just help put out just fires and things. And I mean, like we were saying, Danielle and Rory from Opera on Tap, shout out to them for like really showing us the ropes on things. And I think we were also the biggest production that they had done at the time too. So
certainly did know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in ways, they looked at it as it helping them too. We just went to a 10-minute opera thing that they put on yesterday. And yeah, Danielle came up to us and said, there was a lot of things she took from our experience and what we did with our opera and put it into this one to help the production just be better and things like that, So it was a first for all of us.
Yeah. It is a difficult thing to like try and justify making art in Oklahoma, it seems.
in this economy.
In this economy, but also just like in Oklahoma in particular, because it like we're not exactly known for having the arts. We're known for having oil. So like I guess, what did it take to get people to show up and have it be known that it was happening?
Yeah, we tried to do like a few things from, like you said, the workshop, and then just like little, I don't know what we called them, but singing at the coffee shops and things like that.
Different fundraising.
Yeah, different fundraising things, and just went and talked to people. And
what was that? What was that show that we went on? This that Micah, right?
Oh yeah, man, I can't remember what.
I think it was The Spy.
Yeah, it was called The Spy and the FM, the radio that she had like a Micah from Tower Theater. She had like an hour thing, and she had us talk to them. And there was a couple of interviews we did. Got out there. We went on the UCO, their music radio. Yeah, and it was just a lot of groundwork, a lot of flyers put out.
Good old fashioned.
Yeah.
Sticking flyers under windshields. And
We didn't really know about how the turnout would be. I think going into it, we were like, dang, there's not that many tickets sold. But honestly, every day it grew like a lot. I think the first night, maybe it was in between like 50 and 60. And then our last night was like 150, something like that. Or I don't know. It kind of just jumped up significantly each day.
Yeah. And I remember Evan Jarvix and also Brett Fieldcamp, both really kind. They did some stories for us.
Oklahoma
talking
City
about
Free
it.
Press came out to our to the dress rehearsal and did a story on it and stuff. And so a bunch of little things to try to get people aware of what we were trying to do.
Megan made these QR codes that these tiny little things that had information on it, and then we put them on cars at events that were like kind of related to what we were doing. Mm-hmm. So there was like a play about Greenwood that happened at OCCC like a month before, and then there was also Painted Sky did Pagliacci. No, that was not what they did. What did they do? It was that. Oh, they did that at Rose State. So we went there and like put them on other cars, hoping we could like pull from the same audience. That was my favorite, I think, ploy that happened. It was like because it was like I thought it was really smart at making thought of that. And
Chris was amazing with QR codes. So cool. He loves them.
And then pulling from the same audience just felt really old school and kind of cool. I liked it.
No one yelled at us like, "Get away from my car!" It turned out really good.
We went to like restaurants and stuff and put like big
different
flyers
churches.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Unitarian Church. We spoke there. So see, like so many things. Like I think part of my brain, like I don't know what happened. It just like froze and then deleted like so much stuff that happened during this process.
It's like we had to cast out a net, expecting to get 3 people from here, 5 from here, 10 from there, and it was like that for not only the marketing to get people in, but also the fundraising, trying to get as much money as you can from so many different places.
And you feel bad because you're always asking people for money. And you're just like, I'm sorry,
and then just get people to bring other people. I think that was a big thing too. People just telling other people, hey, come and yeah.
So now it's recorded, which is kind of why we're here. So tell me about the process of recording it and then having it be put out there for people to stream.
Yeah, so I need to say a huge thanks to Patrick, Colin, and Christina Giacona. They have a company, Onyx Lane. And I've been lucky to get to work with them too on some different things. But they were so kind. They're the reason we were able to get the recording. When we started doing our fundraising, it came time. We didn't have enough money to be able to pay for the actual recording cost anymore at that point, but we had everything else covered. So they totally offered to volunteer their time to help it so we could still capture the recording. So without them, we would not have the recording. And so they've been so amazing, helping with the actual like recording during the nights of the shows, and then mixing and then mastering the audio, which we're going to release soon.
Yeah. What's it been like? I guess, you're going to be releasing it soon, but this has been a long time coming. What's it been like to listen back to the recordings and hearing like, wow, this is the best way, like this is the best iteration of this, or whatever it might be. Like, yeah.
Oh, it's really, I feel like this is like, I was so excited. Like, this is like, it's like the best recording of my stuff I've ever been able to get, which I was so excited with from that perspective. And then it was like, we recorded across 3 days. So we were able to like splice in like the best moments from all 3 days, which was really nice to do. And tempos are pretty consistent. So we were able to like get all that to happen. And then the hardest part was not putting everything on the CD that's released and just trying to keep it the songs. Because as a composer, I wanted to have like everything. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about, well, maybe just you have all the best parts of it that gets people excited about it. And if they want to hear the rest of it, they go to the video online and check it out, which is a good move. But it was the composer. He's like, well, I really want this part though, but
this explains the context for the thing.
Helps make it make sense.
Care about but me.
The dialogue too. It's like, but wait, no, you have to, you can't just listen to everyone. You have to listen to all the way through. You can't just skip around. But of course, skip around. It's fine. But
yeah. Can we say when?
So, I should have let me pull these dates up. I know June 30th is the day that the first single from it's going to come out. It's At the Courtroom. It's one Lorenzo sang. That'll be the first one we release. It'll be on all the streaming platforms. And then we'll have it. There's going to be 2 singles that release and then the full album. All that will be available as a free download with the highest quality audio possible on my website with like a suggested donation to, there's 3 different places we put up for people to do that. So kind of an honor system there for people to do. If they like it, enjoy it, they can donate and then get a free download of the thing.
You can stream on Spotify, Apple Music too.
Really good music to listen to.
Incredible singers. My goodness.
I don't know if we should mention like we made it to finals for the National Composer.
Oh, it's for the American Prize.
Okay, American Prize thing. And I mean, I don't know where that's went fully, but still we went against like good people who've been doing it for a long time, So I think even to get there, I think it's something to commend. And, mostly Chris for, because he's the one who really did the music. So
I need to pull up the other dates so I could. That's a big fail on my part, guys. I only had the June 30th on the mind.
That's fine. They can check out the single and then just stay, just they can wait with bated breath. Yeah,
this was actually planned. Go follow me on Instagram, and you're going to get all the information you need. Chris Prather Music on Instagram. June 30th will be the first drop, and then I'll post the other dates there. So actually, guys, this was completely 100% planned. I had no intention to give those other dates.
Is there anything else regarding the opera specifically that we haven't gotten to talk about yet?
I think one thing that's interesting, and I think for people that aren't like musicians or like, I guess, do artistic stuff or work in this area, they don't know. I think the collaboration process is kind of interesting because there's so many little tiny things that are affected by everyone in really small ways that make it the whole thing better overall. And we talked a little bit about with the workshop, but even on the week of the performances, we were changing lines and doing stuff just to make everything as good as we possibly could. And that would come from some suggestions from the singers. I remember Lorenzo coming up and saying he wanted to sing a certain line in a really sweet way. It's the song Recollections at the beginning when he's singing about the memory of his mom and what she was like. And he gets really sweet with it in his voice, how he's singing. And so suggestions like that, or Jordan coming up and saying, yeah, I'm going to take that note down. It's going to be better for the whole song because it'll save a higher note for later, which worked really well. So all these different things like that they inject into it to make things better. There's also a really cool moment that I reference a lot, and they've heard me say it. But during the workshop, or sorry, not the workshop, the rehearsals leading up to the performance we did a year ago, there was one line we were trying to get right. It's in the final number. There's this big moment where Harold's second, a lifetime my son will never get to live, days he'll never get to see, minutes, seconds, that feel like eternity. It's a huge dramatic moment where he's interacting with the officer who killed his son. And the actual notes of the melody were not right at all the way up to that point. For however many couple of years it was written, it was just too low and it wasn't really coming out how we needed it. So we were relighting that line, just me and him, off to the side during rehearsals. And then we brought it out and had him sing it for the first time and no one else knew about it. And then everyone lost their mind. We're freaking out.
They all cheered. It was a happy moment.
Right how it needed to be.
It was so nice.
That was one of the really exciting moments where it felt yeah. I don't know.
It was coming together and it was so cool. And I'm not from the music world at all. I don't know how any of this stuff works until I started kind of learning through this process and just seeing everyone. Oh my goodness. It was just so nice. And everyone's so encouraging of each other and working together and taking each other's critiques and opinions all in it. And maybe that's different than the normal collaborative process. I don't know, but it was just wonderful.
Yeah, I think everybody carried themselves really professional. I think people would probably be surprised to hear that it is our first go at this and first opera because of how it just went and it was just put on so well. And I think another thing to mention is after every performance except our last one, we had talkbacks afterwards where, we wanted to know the people who watched it, what they thought of it, and they could ask us questions and all that types of stuff. And we really got deep in those conversations too. So, that was something we really cared about wanting to do. So we knew the thoughts of the audience after seeing it.
Yeah. Stepping a little bit outside of necessarily the opera itself, but more so the subject matter in that, I guess I'll be asking each of you individually of what has been your perspective and the way that you have seen or experienced police brutality or maybe racial profiling or prejudice or whatever that might be. How has that been your experience in your own life that informed how you went into this, but then also now that you have done it, how that has changed your perspective? I know that's a really long, winding question, but yeah.
I think a lot of, at least over the past few years of what I've seen, it's a lot of watching body cam footage and breaking it down and writing it journalism wise, and I think one thing, so back to, I kind of mentioned at the beginning, the Benny Edwards incident that happened in 2021. I remember in the newsroom, we were kind of all, we're trying to get the story out about it. My boss was having me watch body cam footage and you're watching it over and over. And he wants you to take timestamps of each moment something notable happens. So I was watching it and it's oh my goodness, it's horrible. But the most notable thing to me was after he shot this man 3 times in the back when he was running away from him, it took officers 43 seconds to approach him. And then they handcuffed him. And it was just horrible. And I don't know, that kind of, oh my goodness, that kind of helped light some fire in there, I think. And those things and seeing it over and over again, it kind of helped make you even angrier, I guess, and inform that writing. I don't know. I just know that one really stuck with me.
Yeah, I did a lot of the research on a lot of the cases that kind of just has happened here in OKC, and these are things I've kind of just always knew, but it's just kind of reading up on those cases, it's just kind of crazy because you don't really need to do too much for something to kind of just happen to you, and you see that they don't take a lot of things into account, like people having mental health and things like that. Maybe they just got a little knife or something, they still end up getting shot, or, families, they're calling because they have a child he's going crazy because he's mentally ill or something. And, the cops come with force, and it's just well, I didn't call you for that. I just called you to just calm him down and things like that, and And, like with the Floyd thing, these are things Black people have always seen, and I think it's just because it was just blatant murder, it's that, and it's caught on camera, it couldn't be refuted. People were just like, oh, so this has been happening, and Black people are like, duh, like it's been going on. And so just like seeing those and, as far as like a personal experience, I'm never really like too comfortable just around cops, just in general ever. I have been, pulled over before, and, I remember one incident, the moment I rolled the window down, the cop was just like, don't worry, we're not going to hang you, sort of thing. It was like his first words. And I'm just like, oh, well, I didn't think that until you just said it now. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes they do that. They just like say things and not realizing what they're saying. And they're just like overly aggressive just in situations. And I don't know. And even since our opera, we've still been having things have still been going on. So it's tough to have like good thoughts on it being fixed in the future. Because we don't really like know how. I think it kind of comes with like our police, like getting just more in tune, maybe even with our youth and in schools and being more with our community and things like that. Yeah, I ain't trying to ramble too much, but yeah.
Please.
See, I remember one thing that stood out to me, and this wasn't a police brutality instance necessarily, but it was Latasha Harlan's. And she was trying to buy orange juice at a store, and then she was shot by the store owner. And then she wasn't convicted at all, the person who did it, the woman who shot her. And that was one of the events that led to the riots that happened in LA. But that one just horrified me so much just because of a child being killed. It's so horrible. And what really bothers me the most is that people lose sight of that aspect of it, that there's children. These are people who were once children that are now being killed. And there's people that just completely disregard it and feel like their lives don't have any value or matter at all. And then that feeling of absolute hopelessness, that suffocating hopelessness that you can't change it or do anything to make things better. And you can't even protect your own family. That thing horrifies me the most about it. And I'm sorry, because that wasn't really good. But that's like, about it is what horrifies me the most.
Yeah.
And that it's still a problem with it that can't be solved, that hopelessness that it can't change.
Yeah, because I think people like always, ask, when an incident, they're like, oh, well, what did that person do? You know what I'm saying? And I think the very first question, and when we did our talkbacks after the first showing, a lady asked, because at the end we put like how many people have been shot since we've been like writing it and or been killed or whatever by police brutality. And, she was like, oh, well, how many of those were justified? And it's just like, our definition of justified is different from theirs. Like I said earlier, you ain't really got to do too much, They kind of use lethal force, quickly without, trying to just de-escalate the situation first. Whether they, what they say the most, whether it's out of fear or not, it's just, there's other ways to go about these things. And like I said, it ain't just Black people. It's, all people and more people who are minorities and more who are in poverty and things, obviously. But, yeah, they just gotta, I'm losing my train of thought, but, yeah, people just think, I think that's the wrong way to think about it first, just like, oh, well, what did that person do? Maybe they had to have done something. And a lot of the times, I ain't gonna lie, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. It takes too long to get down to just the fact that, well, this person is dead now. Like, now we don't get to look into anything. We don't get to see at the end if they're innocent. It's too late.
And the family's never shown.
Yeah, they're not. I don't know. There's such a lack of empathy and just humanity within people. And sorry to like the whole, I don't know how we fix it. I don't know what we do to just, so I don't know how you should get people to care about the perspective of the family. If the first thing they're going to say is, well, I mean, well, what about the people? What do they do to deserve it? If that's how you're going into this, if that's your first question, I don't know. Like I don't know how I think any opera is going to solve that problem. I don't know.
Part of me wants to think that comes from a place of they don't want to think that the police force is killing people unjustly. And they want to hope that there was something that caused them. But it's just so horrible.
Maybe it's a little bit of fear in themselves too. I don't know. Of like, man.
If you allow me to be a radical here, but this is also my podcast. So that, I mean, it's funny. Like the first thing that like came to mind whenever you said like, oh, so like how many of those were justified? And I'm like, none of them. And it's like, it literally does not matter because like you are not judge, jury, and executioner. Your job is to serve and protect, or at least that's what it says on the car. But at the same time, I'm like hesitating, but I'm like, no, wait, I can say whatever the fuck I want. Which is like, the police are not required by law to protect people. There are so many cases that have gone through the courts that prove that like the police aren't required by law to enforce restraining orders. They're not required by force to defend someone who is directly in danger. They're not required. Like all of these cases that have actually gone through the courts that like prove that like the police as a system, as an institution, is not actually there to serve and protect us just in like pure legal terms. And so like,
You do.
And so I think that like the difficulty that arises then is that like the conversation breaks down because we're so unwilling to like bridge the gap as far as like understanding goes. And so it's like there's so much more to inform people about, to be like, hey, there was this instance where there was a murderer on a train and the police were on the other side of the door and they were watching this guy get stabbed multiple times. That's a thing that happened. The court ruled in favor of the police officers for not stepping in. There's this other case where a woman who had a restraining order against her ex-husband had, called the police because her ex-husband had kidnapped the kids, and the police were not required to enforce that restraining order. And that man killed himself and his children in the car before the police even did anything, because they weren't required to do anything. And the court ruled in favor of the police officers in that instance. So like, of course,
with Uvalde.
Yeah, Uvalde, Texas, those babies that got, well, they did nothing but put on hand sanitizer and check their cell phones. Mm-hmm. What is your job? What's the point? What do you guys do if not?
And so like to come at the conversation in a way of being like, oh, well, what did these people do to deserve it, is not even actually the same starting point, because the starting point is like the institution itself is not actually required to do literally anything at all. And so like to maybe understand why people are like, defund the police, and whatever that might mean to people. And that phrase scares people. And the phrase has become really difficult to parse because it kind of more so means divest from the police. And so to like, hey, let's put money into these other services, so that like the example that you were using, Ray, about like, oh, this kid is having a mental health crisis and he's running around naked. We don't necessarily need an armed person to come here to shoot him. We need someone that is able to de-escalate the situation. And like, we've seen that like giving more funding to police doesn't increase training in that instance because they just continue to escalate with their militarization. And so like, isn't the Oklahoma City Police Department like one of the highest funded police departments in the United States? Like it's not like giving them more money is going to make them better police officers.
We already tried that.
Yeah. And so like, it's hard to look at that subject and be like, we've been doing the same thing over and over again. We are tired of doing the same thing over and over again and seeing the same results. And so, yeah, it's no wonder people are going like, maybe we should put money in other things that aren't the police.
Agreed. The problem living in Oklahoma is the people who are delegating the money to things other than, so we have 866 for mental health, isn't that? Mm-hmm. But police still are sometimes responding to these calls and everything. So it's just, we need to get other people in office who are going to, vote for funds going to where they need to go and not just continuing to bloat our police budget so we can have like Humvees that park in front of elementary schools to keep those kids in line, I guess.
Yeah. One of the reasons it's so hard to get accountability too, there's that Graham versus Connor Supreme Court ruling, and it was 1989. That makes it where you have to think about the officer's mindset in this split second when they made the decision to use deadly force, lethal force. Mm-hmm. So in that moment, did it seem reasonable? You can't think about any of the actions or any of their decision making up to it. Did they do anything to de-escalate the situation? No, it doesn't matter if they caused it. Just in that one moment, did it seem reasonable that the officer made that decision? Mm-hmm. And that's why they all say, oh, I fear for my life. And they can keep saying that because of that ruling protects them.
I don't know if you were.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. When people hear defund the police, they think we're trying to get rid of police. And that's like not the case. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we do need police officers, but it's just like one, they need better training. Like, two, we need more examples made of the ones who do things that, they aren't supposed to be doing. I think police, something happens and all they're trying to do is protect their integrity, and they want to not look bad and stuff. And they put officers on administrative leave and things like that. And maybe they get their jobs back later or work for a different police force somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, doctors don't get opportunities to mess up. They lose their license. These other serious jobs, that people do, they lose their practices when things happen. And I feel like the same thing should happen to officers when, it's a police brutality situation. But a lot of the police brutality situations we feel like and that they definitely are, they don't see it that way. So that's why they kind of get off a lot.
Yeah. I mean, even with George Floyd specifically, the police officer that had his knee on George Floyd's neck had a series of complaints against him and there was no action taken. And so like, it's not like we're not saying anything about it. And so of course, the title of the opera is No Justice, No Peace. If there is no justice for the people that are being killed at the hands of police brutality, then there will still be no peace. And so like the riot is the way that the unheard gets heard. And so like there won't be peace until we see justice. And it seems like there's no way to I have lost trust in the justice system in order to like make it feel like there is justice. And so, I know like it's not your responsibility as opera writers to give answers to this thing because like art is about sort of the further exploration of these things and these feelings and these experiences. And so like it's up to you as the viewer to figure out like, well, this is complicated. Thank you for helping me feel these emotions better. And now what can we do as a people together to create that change.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, because it's like it's in the archive out there now that there's something out there you can see that shows you the family side, that this and that. So now it is up to the people to kind of go educate themselves and look at it and see how they feel, and hopefully it changes something in them.
Maybe someone, and like with opera and fleshing out these characters, maybe someone will see themselves a little bit in some way, and maybe they'll see themselves, if they're a father, they'll see themselves in Harold's shoes. Maybe there'll be a line in there that's like, oh my goodness, like, oh, I said that to my kid, or, oh, the shoe shop, maybe there's something that will be that common thread of humanity that will at least get someone to put themselves in those shoes. Maybe if there's not even all those commonalities.
I have a great story that goes with that from one of the people that came to the opera. So my pastor took a church van and took some of the people from my church where I direct the choir and everything. He took them to the opera to see the performance. And there was one person who is very conservative politically and super supportive of the police. And he came up to me next time I saw him in church after seeing the opera and told me that he was really moved and he hadn't even thought of this situation that way. Seeing the family that way more personally, what they were going through, he hadn't considered it that way. I thought that was like the perfect testament to what we want to do for people that may be on the fence or aren't willing to maybe see yet what the victims are going through.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Thank you for letting me be on my soapbox. But yeah, any final thoughts or things to say about this thing or things to share?
Please watch it on YouTube. Chris, you have the exact YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel.
I think if you type in one act opera, no justice, no peace, it'll pull right up. And you see the whole thing. And then it's going to be on Spotify, June 30th, a single release, and then the whole thing eventually. I have like a list. I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who was involved. Can I read off my very long list of everything? Let me find this now. Okay. So I'm just going to do all of them. So first to the cast, we had Jordan Andrews, Lorenzo Butler, Kayla Marshall, Alexandria Carmen, Jacob Velders, Elena Weinbender. Thanks to Jose Batty, he conducted everything. And another little fun random thing, I was a nervous wreck the whole week. Santiago as a composer, we all know like the nerves of like, oh God, it's totally out of my hands now. And it was a great lesson in trusting in other people to do what I asked them to do and not
oh my gosh, yeah,
trying to micromanage or do anything. So I twiddled my thumbs and walked around and paced in the back of the room while they did their jobs.
He did. It made me nervous.
So thanks to also Allie, who's the music director, pianist, Maria, Chaslin, Sophia, Cheyenne, Alexander, Sierra, Devon, Gus. Producers, we had Daniel Harrington, Megan, and Ray. Cheyenne was our director and did costumes. Rory. Huh?
Incredible costumes.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
so
Chad. She did so good on that.
People were saying, "Oh, I think were those real op cops in the audience?"
I'm just gonna like speed up your voice in it.
Alex Walkup, he was there working at Place Help Us a lot. Hayden, Chandler did our artwork. Mary Prather. Foster Gibbs also, they helped us a lot of stuff that day. Okay, and then super thanks to Edmund Music, Larry Leah Westmoreland, Margaret Brish, Edmund Trinity Church, Dr. Tess, Remy Schumacher, Sandra Flansburgh, Mary, Virginia, Zoe, Kim, Abigail, Onyx Lane, Parker, Lisa, Patricia, Paul, Griffin, Seth, Casey, James, Jason, Jacob, Jared, Molly, Jill, Xavier, Colt, Katie, Karen, Kaylin, Robin, Delita, Rachel, Shania, Mary, Braden, Katie, Barbara. Okay, and then now special thanks to the interview. I'm so sorry. Jordan, Devon, James, Johnny, Troy, Clint. Feedback from Jose, Dr. DeMayo, Dr. Knight, Colton, Walker, Kongwa, Dr. Thompson. We had volunteers, Aaron, Angelique, Bruner, Cameron, Corbin, Hayden. So a lot of stuff there. Yeah. You could see all their names at the end of the video too. And without them, this wouldn't have been possible. The three of us alone couldn't have made this happen. It was because all of them donating, all the people who cared about the project. I'm so moved and honored that there were people that are willing to help us with that. Yeah. Help me with that.
Yeah.
Please go see the opera. Like we said, on YouTube. Hopefully we're able to put it on again. I think we have been in talks of trying to do another run of it at some point because we think it's very important. We think we need more eyes on it.
Money.
Give us money,
Which I think
please.
after we've done it and put it on, I think we got people that would definitely back us more, and it'd be easier to put it on again. So
And just support opera and art in Oklahoma City. The 10-minute opera on tap, they're always doing incredible things. And that's the only way conversations like this happen, and we all get outside of our comfort zones. And so, yeah, support opera on tap and art in Oklahoma City.
yeah, we need stuff like this here in our state for sure.
I will say that like if you are a musician or a creative in the Oklahoma music scene, the people in this room as well as the people that were listed are people that you should know and get to know. And it's like, oh, well, I kind of want to do this thing. How do I make this thing happen? Like all of this interconnected web of like a music community is like what keeps us all going. Like we literally can't do this ourselves. And like you said, as a composer, it's like we put all this work together to like get this stuff played or get this stuff heard. But then it's like, it goes into other people's hands and it becomes greater than anything that we could have done by ourselves. And so like, it is super necessary to be a part of community. So be a part of the community and reach out to these people and get to know. I was like, oh, who was it that you mentioned that helped with this thing? And like, we're all here to help each other because we know how hard it is to make art in Oklahoma. So lastly, just plug your stuff. Where can people find you and your things individually?
Like I said, my name is Kenneth Woods. I also go by Ray. That's what most people call me. That's my middle name. You can find me on my Instagram, which is Mr_Woods. That's MISTER_Woods. I say Woods, people will be like, Willis? But no, WOODS. And then on Facebook, I think I'm just Kenneth R. Woods.
Yeah, Chris Prather Music. You can find that on Instagram is a good one, Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel all by the same name. You can find this opera on there. You can find updates about other music stuff I'm releasing, including this album once we release it on the Spotify. June 30th will be the first single. It'll be available also again on my website. Free downloads of all the stuff, suggested donation to 3 different organizations, all Oklahoma based that I put on there. You can find that information on my website. Also Chris Prather Music.
Oh, and I'm Megan Prather. If you're so inclined, you can follow me on Instagram at Megan Prather JPG. Also on Twitter at Megan Prather 405. Trying to always writing. So
yeah. Thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, thank you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us on here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I wish that I could see her smile once again. I wish that I could hold her hand Our moment in the sun has never truly begun. They couldn't look me in the eye when they told me how my son died, taken from this world by the hands that were meant to protect us.
Helped women escape impossible.
of lawyers grasping for anything at all, call their expert to the stand, building his profile, not as a man longing to bask in the sun, but as a predator stalking his prey, ready to extinguish their heroes' rays. Seconds that feel like minutes, days like times. A lifetime, my son, will never get to live. Days will never get to see. Minutes, seconds that feel like eternity. Case after case, our people are killed. No justice, racist or not, you are not fit for the badge. In our dreams, we can see there was no need for my son to die.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music and produce audio. The music you're hearing now is music I made. You can listen to official releases by Santiago Ramones on Spotify, Apple Music, and the other streaming places. Or you can support me directly by buying my music on Bandcamp. I'm working on Hypothetical, my first singer-songwriter album, so if you'd like to hear that at some point, I'm so close, I promise. There are lots of ways to support me on my website. There's a Discord server in which we discuss deep topics from the podcast, but it's also a community of beautiful human beings. All the links to these things are on my website, santiagoramones.com. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts if you listen there. It means a lot to me to hear what you have to say about it, and you're helping me without having to spend a single cent on me. I want to help the world have deeper conversations, so thank you for listening to and supporting Bit Depth. I was in the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.
That's good.